There is no algorithm. Every order Camille Sims has followed, every gas attack, every memory wipe, every decision to let a mayor die quietly, has come from a human being, a specific one. And the show just told you exactly who, and almost nobody caught it. This isn't a recap of a dark web. You can get a play-by-play anywhere. This is the one detail in episode 3 that changes what Silo actually is. Not a story about a computer controlling humanity, but a story about one man controlling humanity through a computer. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how the show proved it, why the pauses in the algorithm's responses are the biggest tell in the whole season, and what this means for whether Juliet makes it out of that medical bay alive. Quick groundwork, because this theory only lands if the structure is clear. Silo Season 3 runs 2 timelines at once. In the present inside Silo 18, Juliet Nichols has been quietly poisoned, not with violence, with vitamin D+, a memory-suppressing pill disguised as medicine. Camille Sims, head of IT, administers her recovery, taking her orders from something called the algorithm, a voice on a screen inside the IT vault that everyone treats like an all-knowing machine. In the past, decades before any of this, Congressman Daniel Keene is chasing the truth about his sister Charlotte's disappearance during a military flight gone catastrophically wrong. He teams up with journalist Helen Drew, and together they get their hands on evidence the government very badly wants buried. A recording of a fighter squadron being destroyed mid-air by something that shouldn't exist. 2 stories, 2 timelines, separated by what looks like 100 years. Here's the part the show doesn't say out loud. It just lets you hear it. Every time Camille steps into that vault and speaks to the algorithm, you're hearing the voice of actor Ashley Zuckerman. Here's why it should. Ashley Zuckerman is the same actor playing Daniel Keene in the Before times. Now on its own, that could just be an actor doing double duty. Shows do that. But Silo isn't a random production. It's adapted from Hugh Howey's novels, and in the book that covers this exact era, called Shift, Daniel Keene isn't just a congressman investigating a conspiracy. He's Donald. And Donald ends up exactly where you'd expect the most dangerous man in the story to end up. Locked inside Silo 1, in cryosleep, periodically woken up to manage the entire network of silos from behind the scenes. Put those 2 facts together, and the implication isn't subtle anymore. The algorithm Camille has been taking life and death orders from isn't software. It's Daniel Keene, still alive, still awake, on and off, centuries later, talking to Camille through a modulated voice she's never questioned, because why would she? Machines don't lie about being machines. People do. Watch the algorithm closely next time Camille asks it something urgent. There's always a beat, a small delay before the response comes through, longer than you'd expect from a system that's supposedly been running silo-wide surveillance for centuries. A true supercomputer running that kind of infrastructure doesn't hesitate. What does hesitate is a human being on the other end, physically pulling a file, reading a report, weighing a decision, and then choosing his words before he answers. That lag isn't a rendering delay, it's someone thinking. And that detail opens up a much bigger question the show hasn't answered yet. Is the algorithm one man cycling in and out of cryosleep for centuries? Or is it a rotation, a shift system, where whoever's on duty in Silo 1 becomes the voice for however long their watch lasts? Either way, the illusion Camille is operating under, that she answers to a perfect, unbiased computational authority, is exactly that. She's answering to a person hiding behind a double interface, and people hiding behind interfaces have agendas. Here's where the past timeline stops being a separate story and starts being the instruction manual for everything happening in Silo 18. In the Before times, Dr. Victor Kronkovich runs a facility at Fairfax built to erase trauma from catastrophe survivors. He describes the process using a simple metaphor. Memory is a drawbridge. Raise it chemically, and you isolate the traumatic event on the far side, cut off from the rest of someone's identity. Once the gap is open, You don't need force to control what a person believes. You just need to feed them the same approved story, over and over, until the repetition becomes their memory. Now look at what Camille does to Juliet. Vitamin D+, constant, calm repetition of a version of events that conveniently leaves out the fact that Juliet once held Camille's own son at gunpoint. It's not medicine, it's Fairfax, run inside a silo, on a smaller scale, on one very specific target. And that's exactly why physical objects keep breaking through where words can't. Martha's Swiss Army knife. A helmet marked 17. Dr. Victor says it himself. Physical relics bypass the chemical blockade faster than any conversation can. That's not a coincidence, the writer slipped in. That's the show telling you the cure for institutional memory control 100 years before it shows you the disease. This is the moment that should end any debate about whether the algorithm is a cold, logical machine. Camille becomes convinced Lucas Kyle is digging a horizontal tunnel toward another silo, a direct violation of the pact, the kind of contact that's supposed to trigger an external extermination protocol called the safeguard. Her response isn't measured. It isn't algorithmic. She floods the lower mines with toxic gas, disguised publicly as rodent control, and doesn't warn a single miner working down there. Watch the fumigation crew's reaction when they get the order. They're confused, hesitant, because releasing uncontained toxic gas inside a sealed, recycled air ecosystem isn't standard procedure. It's panic dressed up as protocol. A real optimized system protecting long-term survival doesn't casually gas its own workforce and call it pest control. A frightened person with unchecked authority does exactly that. People die. Orla Kent, one of the miners, doesn't make it out. Juliet nearly doesn't either, and only survives because Lucas Kyle, who's been hiding in those same mines for over 90 days, drags her to safety before judicial raiders can reach either of them. Then comes the coldest moment in the entire episode. Instead of escalating to a full memory wipe of the water supply, the algorithm proposes something cheaper. Let Juliet die from her injuries, quietly, in that medical bed. Frame it as heroism. Let grief do what surveillance can't. Pacify a population that's starting to ask questions. That's not a machine calculating probabilities. That's a man protecting a system he built, willing to let a woman die, specifically because the story of her death is more useful to him than the fact of her survival. Machines don't manage narratives. People who are used to getting away with lying do. 3 more details from this episode matter more than they look like they do right now. First, the porters. Every major scene in Silo 18 has one quietly walking through the background. They're the couriers of a city with no working internet, which means when the digital blockade tightens, they become the only network left standing. If a physical rebellion is coming, it moves through them first. Second, the interactive marketing site tied to this season shows something worth remembering. Footage of a billionaire named Per Stenson quietly buying up massive tracts of land in Georgia, the same region tied to the layout of the Silo network, alongside imagery of advanced cryo chambers. Put that next to Daniel Keene's fate in the books, and the algorithm being one man in cryosleep stops sounding like a fan theory and starts sounding like a documented setup. Third, and easiest to miss. In the chaos of the mine rescue, Juliet says, Jesus. In a society where the pact is the only sanctioned belief system, where every scrap of pre-collapse history has supposedly been erased, that word shouldn't exist anymore. If a religious exclamation can outlive 100 years of engineered ignorance, that's the show quietly admitting its own thesis. You cannot fully erase what people carry without knowing they're carrying it. So here's what a dark web actually reveals underneath the recap-friendly plot beats. Silo was never a story about humanity submitting to a machine. It's a story about humanity submitting to each other. One traumatized survivor, hiding behind a screen, deciding for everyone else which memories they're allowed to keep. The algorithm doesn't need to be artificial to be terrifying. It just needs everyone underground to keep believing that it is. So here's what I want to know. If Camille ever finds out the algorithm is Daniel Keene, a man, not a program, do you think she turns on him to protect her son? Or does she double down and protect the lie because she's already in too deep? Drop your answer below. I'm going through every comment on this one. And if you want to see how this exact pattern, one person weaponizing an entire institution and calling it the system, plays out somewhere else, I broke down the same thing happening in House of the Dragon, right here.